I'm your host, John Willis. This is Brad Willis here, and we are here. It looks like recording had just started here just now. So let me start again. This is StormWatch. I'm your host, John Willis. This is Brad Willis, my dad, the co-host. We are here to discuss the three most recent games for the Carolina Hurricanes, starting with the game versus the Philadelphia Flyers, moving on to the game versus the Islanders in the middle of the week. And then on, Friday, they played the Buffalo Sabres. Okay, so first game was the Flyers game. That was an away game, I believe. Hurricanes end up taking that game 4-1. Total shots in that game for the Hurricanes were 36 as compared to the Flyers 29. The Flyers also blocked another 25 shots as compared to the Hurricanes 15. Hits were 9-9. Faceoffs were 26-28 with a slight edge to the Flyers. And both teams were 0-2 on the power play with 4 penalty minutes each. Bunting started off the scoring in the first period from Aho and Dmitry Orlov. Then in the second frame, Travis Konechny gets one, and a few minutes later, Brendan Lemieux gets his second of the season. His second goal of the season, interestingly enough, both of his goals this season were against teams that he played for last season. He also scored, I believe, against the LA Kings at the beginning of this year. So good on him for making some good use of his time in the lineup, getting his second of the game. Would also be his second of the season, and again, that one was unassisted. I liked him in this game. He looked good. In the third period, we went ahead and added a couple more. Seth Jarvis gets his 9th of the season from Sebastian Aho, his second of the day assist-wise. And again, Michael Bunting adding another tally on the play. And then Jesperi Kotkaniemi gets one with 17-16 in the period from Jesper Foss and Teuvo Teravainen. So good game overall here versus the Flyers. Like I said, Lemieux gets into the lineup. Kochetkov started this game. He was good.
He was.
He got to start this game. What were your sort of thoughts, overall takeaways on the game?
No, I thought it was a good game. It was good to see Piotr, play the way we hope he would play. But we'll see in the future games and the future discussions that he didn't have a great game the following night or the 2 nights after this against the Isles. So I think that the team is starting to gel a little bit, if I can say that. I don't think Svechnikov was in the lineup that night, was he?
No, that is why Lemieux was in. So after getting the game winner against Columbus, he does sit out this game here versus the Flyers with flu-like symptoms.
That's right.
He would play the remaining 2 games of this that we're talking about here today. So the most recent 2. So he is back in the lineup. But like I said, Lemieux taking good advantage of Svech being out and using his time on the ice to score another goal for us. So that ended up being the game-winning goal of the game. So really good play. Their one lone goal of the game, it was good play by them, but kind of a little bit of a lucky bounce in the sense that we're in the offensive zone. One of their guys is going off on a line change. Just so happens that line change coincides with us giving up the puck in the offensive zone. Thus, that player is behind all our defensemen. It happens to be Travis Konechny, their best player, and he just really slyly shoots it low glove side versus Piotr come from right in the middle of the slot. So breakaway goal there. It was a good finish by him. Not really much you could do if you're Kochetkov there. And again, the team, would like to maybe recognize that there's a guy behind him, but again, kind of a lucky goal or advantageous goal. They took advantage of a very minor, mistake by us. So that was their lone tally of the game that came in the second period. I'm looking here at kind of the shot totals, and Kochetkov definitely made some good saves in that game. They had quite a few opportunities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at least from between the dots there. So he definitely was busy, but overall the Hurricanes did do a good job of limiting shots. 11-9 in the first period, 17-12 for Carolina in the second period, and then 8-8 there in the third period. So once we had the lead, we were able to kind of slow the game down and then add 2 more on just those 8 shots in the third period. So that was good. Good way to close out that game. Good win for Kochetkov. And then he did earn the start for the next game. Now the next game was a bit of a rough one for him. We lose 5-4 to the Islanders in overtime. Now this was a really exciting game. I actually went to this game with some friends. It was a really fun game. Frustrating game because, the Hurricanes really did dominate this game from a statistical perspective, from a just pretty much every perspective, right? So shots here are 43-16 for the Hurricanes on the day. 43-17 it looks like here if you include the overtime frame. So 43-17 were the total shots for the game. So more than doubling, and we still lose 5-4. Piotr gives up 5 goals in those 17 shots. Now, I don't fault him on the overtime winner. It's a one-timer from their best player. A couple of their goals, were really nice goals. I don't really fault him. He was maybe a little bit deep on their shorthanded goal, which is another issue. We're giving up too many shorthanded goals. It's quite a bit that we give up this season. It seems like he was a little bit short on, or a little bit, deep in his crease. And then he did definitely have one from the slot that kind of just slid under him. I think he'd want that back if you were to ask him about that. 12-8 shots for Carolina in the first, 15-3 in the second, and then 15-4 in the third. Your scoring is Jalen Chatfield gets it started, then Bo Horvat answers 1-1 at the end of the first. Going into the second, Stahl gets a goal, so really good to see him on the scoreboard. But by the end of the second, Islanders add 2 more. Simon Holmstrom adds a shorthanded goal, and so does Pierre Engvall. And so going into the third period, 3-2 for the Islanders. Drury then scores pretty quickly coming out of that third period to start. He gets his second of the season. He's definitely starting to play better, so that's really exciting to see. I'm actually this game here was the first time, or at least that I remember, seeing the line of Natchez, Nason, and Drury. And as weird as that line sounds on paper, and the first time I saw it, I was like, that, because I believe that's the starting lineup that Rod went with this game, was Natchez, Nason, and Drury, which is a weird line, like I said, on paper, but I think it works pretty good, actually. So like I said, Drury scores, then Palmieri gets one to make it 4-3. And then it said with 2.5 seconds left, Aho scored. When I was at the game, it looked like 0.7 seconds left when the puck crossed.
So it's funny because I have 0.7 written down, and then I have it crossed out when they came back after the review.
I don't really understand how they came up with 2.5 seconds left, but in any case, Aho does get it to go just as the third period is ending. So we do get a point out of the game, which is really critical. And that's why I said earlier that it was a fun game to go to, right? It was back and forth, high energy. Like I said, the Canes really did dominate this game, 43 shots to 17, I think I said. So just really, really outstanding there. And then the Islanders had another 30 block shots compared to our 10 block shots. So that's, 73 shots to their 26. That's just an outrageous stat line there.
Crazy.
They were 1 for 4 on the power play. We were 0 for 3. So in both the Flyers game and the Islanders game here, the Hurricanes did not score on the power play. However, they would get it back and go for 2 for 2 in the next game here that we're about to talk about. But like I said, good game here. It's kind of similar to the Tampa Bay game, where Ronta gave up, 8 goals on 14 shots or something absurd like that.
That's what it was. Yeah, 8 on 14.
It wasn't quite as bad as that. The Hurricanes were able to stay in this game the whole time. Like I said, Aho did score, pokes it through Varlamov there with 0.7 seconds to go, 2.5 seconds to go, depending on who you ask. Stahl had a really good shot. Varlamov made a really good save. It was kind of sitting there in between his legs. And Aho just pokes it into the net. In the overtime frame, Matthew Barzal does score off a one-timer on a 2-on-1. Brady Shea made a really good play and offensive play, but the Varlamov does make a save, and then coming back the other way, they get a 2-on-1 off of it. So tough way to end that game, particularly given that the Hurricanes did dominate. But yeah, what were your sort of thoughts on the game?
Exactly what you were saying. I thought early on, the Canes dominated a lot of the action in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was watching it, it just felt weird to me that the Islanders were ahead and would eventually win just because of the pace of play.
Mm-hmm.
And the announcers even made a comment, I want to say kind of at the beginning of the third period, to that effect. Mm-hmm. How frustrating it must be for the Canes to be dominating the game from a shot statistic and yet be behind.
Yeah, I want to show something real briefly. I don't know if it's going to appear too well on the screen. Hopefully it does, but no, it doesn't bleed in.
No.
But just go look at the shot chart for this game. I mean, it's pretty absurd. The Hurricanes are, just look like a pimple-ridden teenager, whereas the Islanders, it's just a couple here and there, and they were able to still find the net that many times. So
yeah,
like I said, tough game from the goalie perspective, from Kochekov's perspective. But the kind of counter side to this argument, and something I've touched upon, I know last episode, was that yes, you do want stellar goaltending, and we were able to get 4 goals this game. I'm not saying that the offense was bad this game, but our top guys need to be able to win games like that for us. When was the last time the Hurricanes had a game where they were shot less than 18 times and then won the game?
Yeah, we don't have. I cannot remember
exactly
the last time one of our goalies has stolen a game.
Correct.
Right? I cannot remember it.
Yeah,
we've got 2 shutouts on the year.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't necessarily say they were stolen.
Games here and there, but it's not like we got outplayed and then the goaltender kept us in it for the entire 60 minutes.
Right.
We've never had a game that's like that this year, at least. Yeah. Yep.
We're gonna have to get used to the shorthanded goals, I'm afraid.
Why is that though?
I just think I think that we're just, even on the power play, our D are very aggressive, and our D are not the fleetest of foot. No. So, right. So, Shea's not going to trace anyone down. Neither is Burns.
I don't know about that. I mean, I've seen both those guys chase people down and then use their stick at the last second to get the puck. It does happen. They're not the fleetest of foot. I'm not going to argue with you on that point. I think the biggest thing, at least for me, when it comes to the shorthand is they're always on 2-on-1 or breakaways off of shorthanded, right? So if you have 5 guys on the ice, why aren't you managing the puck better than the 4 guys on the ice for the other team, which then leads them to getting a 2-on-1? Like, mathematically, it just doesn't make sense. So
right.
Someone's in a lot of instances, what happens is there'll be a guy at the point, Burns is trying to get it through from the point, rather than dumping it off the boards to live another day and keep the cycle going in the offensive zone. It'll hit off the defender's shin pads, and then it's a breakaway because it's going past Burns, and then hopefully we can get that big save, and that big save has been hard to come by this season. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some improvement on that. That being said, the power play is still better than last year. I saw at the during this game they had mentioned that, and when I say this game, I mean the Buffalo game that I just watched earlier today. During that game, they had mentioned that the Hurricanes power play was about 20%, so 15th, kind of right in the middle of the league.
Yeah,
not stellar, but we've seen it a little bit higher this season. We've certainly seen it lower last season. So I'm okay with the power play where it is right now, especially if we can get these other issues of our top guys being our top guys and our goaltenders, regardless if they're not going to steal us games, they do need to play better across the board with more consistency. We are, as far as I looked recently, collectively as goaltenders, we are dead last in the league in terms of save percentage, or maybe not dead last, but we're second to last. And if we're a Stanley Cup contending team, we need to at least be, there at least needs to be a few more teams that are lower than us when it comes to those stats.
Yeah, I don't know the stats, but I would like to see what the penalties and minutes are by team.
We'll have to look into that.
Because
It was
that will affect guys like Aho's production when they're spending time on penalty kills.
yeah.
That's the thing. We've had a lockdown penalty kill for the last couple of years, and we've kind of gotten away from that. And I'm not sure what that, because it's the same players for the most part.
Right. No, it is the same players.
So I'm not sure what has happened there.
I mean,
So,
but 1 for 4 is not terrible, right? It's
right.
It's not terrible. And then the previous game they didn't score any, and then this most recent game with versus Buffalo, it was 0 for 4, I believe. Let me check here.
Yeah, but think about that. That's 8. That's
0 for that's 0 for 5. Oh, we'll get into it. Let's finish wrap up on this game because I got some stuff to talk about.
So one thing about the Isles game was I think it was in the third. Yeah, it was in the third period, where Palmieri scored.
That's their power play goal.
There was a challenge by the bench by Brenda Moore, and there was some confusion from the announcers as to what he was challenging. What they said was that it's challenging the puck was knocked down with a high stick.
Yeah, missed stoppage.
Oh, that's what it is, a missed stoppage?
That's what they call it.
That's what they're calling it. But I don't know whether they went back and looked whether that play was offsides, because to me it looked like it was offsides.
That was my first thought when they gained the zone.
Yeah.
Like, this might be offsides. Was my very first thought. And then when I saw that they were challenging for a high stick, I said, "There's no way that this one's coming back. That doesn't happen." I've seen that go against us too many times, and sure enough, yeah, it wasn't.
But Brenda Moore was like livid. Was that
What's that?
Is that the I may be thinking of another game. I think I am thinking of another game. I think I'm thinking of the Buffalo game where he went livid. We'll get into that next.
Yeah, I don't know if I caught his reaction to it, but I was certainly livid, and we'll get into the reasons why. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the Islanders game before we do move along? Like I said, it's one of those games where the team plays really well. You just need 1 or 2 extra things to happen. Either one critical save from the goaltender, or one of our top guys just needs to answer a little bit sooner than, with 0.7 seconds left in the period. So again, there's not a lot to take away in the negatives of that game, other than you just need a little bit more consistency. Moving on to the last game that we're here to discuss, which is the first game in the month of December. On Saturday, we played the Buffalo Sabres here and won that game by a score of 6-2. Pretty dominant effort across the board again. This time actually getting the results, unlike the Islanders game. Like I said, 6-2. Shots were 35-22 for Carolina. Face-offs, we actually had the edge in this one as well, 31-26. Carolina was 2 for 2, 100% on the power play for the night, and the Sabres were 0 for 5. Now, one of the power plays, which is the one I think we were kind of alluding to last game, Aho gets a double minor called against him for high sticking one of the Buffalo players. Now, on that play, they do go ahead. The referees decide to get together, and they say that they're going to review that play.
Right.
Under the review, which they showed multiple angles of, it's clear as day that Rasmus Dahlin, a player for the Buffalo Sabres, is lifting Aho's stick as Aho is trying to slide his stick on the ice to poke check the puck away from another Buffalo Sabres player. In the process of Dahlin lifting Aho's sticks, it lifts it into the face of the Buffalo Sabres player, and he gets a little bit of a bloody lip, and thus it's a double minor. I don't understand how you review. You make the call on the ice, then you call for a review, and then after looking at that footage, there's no change. I just can't wrap my head around it. I don't think I understand officiating whatsoever at this point in this league. I just don't understand how you don't take that back. How is that Aho's fault? I just don't get it.
So, but what is the rule, right? What is the rule? Are you responsible for your stick at all times, no matter what happens in a melee?
They had Shane Willis, Trip Tracy, and Don Waddell all in the box, all saying, "I think this one's going to come back." Like they were all pretty confident that it was going to come back, and then all very shocked that nothing happened after.
Right.
So,
and that's the play that Rod went ballistic.
I would assume so, because I just can't understand it. I just can't understand how that is a penalty. It's not a penalty if you follow through on a shot and accidentally hit a guy. It shouldn't be a penalty. This happened. I can't remember what game earlier in this week on two other NHL teams. A player was going to, had the puck, was skating with the puck. Another player high sticked him. They reviewed it. The player who got high stick actually reached down, grabbed the offending player's stick, and bashed himself in the face with that player's stick. They reviewed it, no call. They reversed the call, took it off the ice. I don't understand how that's not almost identical to this one. His own teammate bashed Aho's stick into it. Anyways, moving on from that rant, do you have anything else to say about that? It's just endlessly frustrating.
No, I mean about the game or that incident.
That particular incident.
No. What's funny is they went over to I don't remember who got hit in the mouth, but they went over, they looked at him, they made the call, and then so my question is, what are they reviewing?
Yeah, like what? Like they review it in quotes.
Right.
What could you possibly be reviewing other than it's not a penalty because of some other extenuating circumstance? There clearly was another extenuating circumstance that led to that player getting a stick bashed against his mouth. And so why is it not being reversed? It just made no sense at all.
Yeah.
It
didn't lead to anything, but it's frustrating that
the penalty kill was good tonight. Now, one thing about this game, again, we won 6-2. One thing about this game that I did note, and this was something that was echoed by Buffalo players in the post-game interviews, is that some of the Buffalo players after the game said that they're just too easy to play against, right? Yeah. They're a team that's hoping to make the playoffs this year. They're kind of hoping to turn that tide, and after so many years in a row of not making the playoffs, they really, that city really needs them to grow as an organization, and they're kind of stunted in their growth. So they, after the game mentioned that they're a little bit soft. They did have a lousy power play. They're 0 for 5 on the power play. Now, our kill was good. 0 for 5 is you'd hope you get one.
One thing about that game,
Thompson, which is their biggest.
That's exactly what I was going to say, and you can see how evident his absence was because the Sabres look crappy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I want them to make the playoffs, but they're not going anywhere.
No,
especially without Tage Thompson.
And the thing, as it comes back to the Hurricanes, is that yes, we had 3 wins this week, right? Or excuse me, we did lose it versus the Islanders, but it was a good game, right? And we did lose in overtime. So 5 out of the 6 points that were available this week, we took those. That being said, all of our opponents this week were weaker opponents, right? The Flyers didn't make the playoffs last year. The Islanders just squeaked into a spot. The Sabres didn't make the playoffs last year, probably not going to make it this year. The Islanders are the only team that, all of these 3 teams are kind of bubble teams at the moment. More than likely, all 3 of them, with maybe the Islanders being the exception, aren't going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think the Islanders are going to do it either.
Yeah, and I really don't know if they are either. So
not with Detroit and Washington playing well and Pittsburgh. I think they're going to get bumped out. Not that they won't have a decent season, but they're just there's not enough room at the bottom.
And that's my point, is that we still have yet to see the Hurricanes really put on a really good performance against a top tier team. I mean,
right.
Maybe the second game of the season, I think, versus LA was, they're probably the best team that we've beaten so far. And that was a shootout win, I believe. So, we're playing well. There is definitely, reasons to think that we are riding the ship and the train is getting back on the tracks. But there's a couple things we do need to address here. That being said, that Buffalo game was pretty dominant from beginning to end. There really wasn't a lot to worry about with regards to as that game progressed.
Right.
Coach Chekhov, I think, played well in this game. He had a couple misplays with the puck early on and a couple even later in the game.
Well, he went for that poke check at the very end that cost him a goal.
Now, yes, but he does get the poke check. It just kind of goes to yes. I'm not going to say he wasn't.
The player still retained control and made a pass.
Yes, correct.
So okay,
correct.
And it's not only that. So it's not I'm not against the poke check, but did you see where he ended up after he poke checked? He's outside this freaking blue paint on his belly.
Is that why Chatfield?
That's why Chatfield tripped over him and fell into the goal.
Yeah. If Chatfield could have just lifted the goal off the moorings and knocked the net off the play, that's ideally what happens there. But that being said, he did have a couple misplays with the puck, especially in the first period and a couple later in the game. But overall, I think his positioning in net was pretty solid. He didn't have to face a ton tonight. I've got the total shots here. Let's pull that up again.
No, he was over 900 save percentage, I think.
Yeah, so he let in 2 goals on 22 shots. So that's over 900. So that's good for his stats. Aho had a really good game today. He was impactful and kind of going, but my criticism of him last week and him along with the other guys, but particularly him, given that he is our premier player, right? He's the guy that everyone around the league knows is him and maybe Svechnikov. But given that he's our highest paid player, our premier player, my criticism last week is he really needs to start being that. Now, I believe he got a point at least on every single game. And this particular game, he was really good. He had 2 goals, and I believe, just 2 goals. It looks like he didn't factor in on an assist, but still, really good game. And he definitely could have had more. He had some really good looks. He definitely wanted that hat trick. But he gets it going with the first goal of the game from Jarvis and Slavin. Really good play by Jarvis to just drop the puck to Aho. Aho really rips it, snipes it top shelf. Drury then gets one just about a minute later. He's really started to pick up. I think that line with Natchez, Drury, and Nason, I really like that line. Something about it is good. And that's one thing that I think is going to be key for this team is we really need to solidify our lines. I know Rod likes to mix things up, and if it's not working, it is good to mix things up. We do need to kind of solidify our lines because we either need to figure out if we've got, 2 really good scoring lines and then kind of a defensive stall line and then a middling 4th line, or if we can more evenly spread it out to 3 scoring lines and then have that 4th line be the shutdown stall line. I think, your 3rd and 4th line are probably going to, given the way that Rod likes to style his teams, are going to get relatively even amounts of ice time, especially if that 3rd or 4th line can become a scoring line, which it looks like it can be. And, Natchez is such a skilled player that I think putting him with a guy like Nason, who's gritty, but can still make plays, is really good. And then Drury's kind of a good balance between those 2 guys. Drury can win you some faceoffs. He's a good, solid defensive forward, right? Responsible on both sides of the puck, as is Nason, and even Natchez can be, certainly at times, especially as compared to early on in his career. I'm liking that line. Then in the second period,
that's a Drury, Natchez, Nason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting line, and I hope it kind of keeps rolling along because it is producing points, so that's good. Then in the second period, Aho gets his 2nd of the game, his 8th of the season on the power play with a
Beautiful
good assist
pass.
from Svechnikov. Svechnikov had a good game today. Had 2 assists, both of them on the power play. But that line with him and KK and Turbo, I thought looked pretty good. I thought they were kind of stagnant versus the Islanders. But it was good to see them getting some action and then also getting rewarded for that on the power play. Nason then gets another goal with a really nifty play from Natchez. Flip out of the zone, high flip out of the zone. It ends up getting past the defender there. Natchez hops on the loose puck and then realizes very smartly that he's got a limited amount of room to work with. and he's got a defender hot on his trail, but right behind that defender is Nason. And so he just basically lays it off, kind of almost like an alley-oop, if you will.
Yeah.
Really nice play, really smart play. I thought it was one of the smartest plays I've seen Natchez make with the puck. And just a tap-in, really a tap-in for Nason. So really, really good goal there. And then Turbo gets the third of the second period, again, on the power play from Svechnikov. Beautiful seam pass by Svechnikov from the top left point area, where he likes to hang out, over across to Teravainen sitting on the doorstep. Just taps it home or lifts it over the.
Yeah, he had to go top cheese. I mean, it was a good shot by Turbo.
It was good.
It was a good shot.
That's his 11th goal of the season. He's still leading the team. Aho's catching up with him. Aho's got 8 now, so that's good to see. Like I said, Aho is becoming the player I was bitching about him not being at the end of last episode that we did that podcast. Right. So it's good. Casey Middlestat then does get a goal in the third frame with an assist from Alex Tuck, and Henry Jokiharju just wires it past Kochetkov on kind of a break, a little bit of a broken play there. Don't fault Kochetkov on that one. Brady Shea then gets a shorthanded goal later in the game with an assist from Turbo. That's his 7th of the season assist-wise. Turbo just really wins the face-off on that one, and then Brady snaps it home. Yeah, but Turbo's becoming good. A week or two ago, he only had 1 assist. There was a point where he had 10 goals and 1 assist. Now he's up to 7 assists. So he's still scoring goals and still making plays. So that's really good. And that's Shea's 4th goal of the season. And then in the last later in the game, Tyson Jost does get his 2nd goal of the season. But that's your final score after that. Canes kind of shut down the game for the final 10 minutes. Aho does have some more looks. He's clearly looking for that hat trick. Doesn't end up getting it, but some good stuff there out of him. I was really impressed with him this game. It's just a matter of, can he now do this against the top teams that we need him to be this top guy against? Even without Aho tonight, we still were probably going to beat Buffalo, right? We will need him to do these type of games versus those top teams that we need him, to help us get over the hump on. And so, again, it just kind of comes down to consistency with that Canes. That's the big thing I'm going to be looking forward to, the rest of this month of December here. One stat I thought was noteworthy is that since 2021, the Hurricanes have been the best team in the month of December from a points percentage perspective. So really like to keep that going, see if we can keep that going this year and have a really strong December. I believe this is the month last year where Kochetkov got really hot. It was in the month of December, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see. We'll see. And I think there's definitely a lot more optimism in terms of my outlook on the team.
Yeah, the team's starting to gel. So just some quick stats before we break. We've won 5 of the last 7, 6 of the last 10, which isn't as great, but 8 out of the last 12.
That's good.
It's really the goaltending that's killing us. A couple things on the Buffalo game. The power play goal by Turbo. There was a good keep in at the blue line by Burns. He rushed across.
Good.
Grabbed reached out a stick, and that just led to a goal. So it's the little things like that.
Yeah.
The amount of hustle can really pay off. And then it's nice to see Drury get in a fight, although he got the worst of it. It's a growing up type of milestone.
Yeah, I'm glad he's willing to do it. He's done it a couple times in the AHL as well, so it's not like it's a foreign thing for him. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the most experienced fighter, but he's standing up for his teammates, and he's getting assists, he's getting goals. So I couldn't be happier for the guy. I hope he does keep producing, and we see this progression out of him that we were hoping for at the start of the season. I think given he's got some chemistry that's natural with Nason because they played together for so long in the AHL, Natchez now adding a little bit of skill to that line. I think that I'm really excited about that line. I think it could really, bode well.
Drury's starting to come along. Yeah, he's starting to come along. He's starting to contribute. You just can't have a line that doesn't contribute. Everyone's got to contribute.
Right.
The goalie situation. Well, one more thing about the schedule. So we go on a six game road trip now.
Yep. Busy.
And
Busy
it's
month.
Canada, I think a Canada road trip.
Yep, we go Winnipeg, followed by the Oilers, back-to-back with Calgary. We wrap it up in the end of that week in Vancouver. The following Tuesday, we head over to Ottawa, bump back down to the States for Detroit, and that is the Thursday, the December 14th. So quite a few away games here. And then once we get back from that road trip, we got a game very next day against the Nashville Predators. So Nashville's been playing well as of lately. They were on a little bit of a streak. I think streak has ended, but
Winnipeg playing well. Edmonton's coming on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Winnipeg's a tough team. They're starting to turn it around. Oilers can always be dangerous. Any sort of back-to-back scenario is always right. So we got Edmonton, who in my mind is the more dangerous of the two outdoor-based teams. But then you play Calgary, the weaker one, on a back-to-back. So that's tough schedule-wise, right? And then you go and play Vancouver. Vancouver's been on a heater this season, cooling down a little bit. Cooling down, but still a top team in the West.
Yeah.
Ottawa, they're kind of a middling team, hoping to be a little bit better. I think we can get that game, especially after a couple days of break. And then you go to Detroit. Detroit's a really young, fast, fun team, proven to be a tough opponent this season.
Yeah, they're gonna get in the playoffs this year, I think. Nedeljkovic is playing really well in goal when he gets his shots.
He's not with them.
Oh no, who am I thinking of? Oh, Ryan.
Thinking of
Lyon, Alex Lyon.
Lyon, yeah. Reimer's with them too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Nedeljkovic was with them, but he is playing well with Pittsburgh.
He's playing well, yeah.
But yeah, so a couple things to wrap up. Jury's been playing well. Orlov is looking much better in the system. I think, getting Tony out of the lineup it's been like 5 or 6 games in a row now. Seems like that's probably the way that this thing is going to ultimately shake out.
Yeah.
I hope we can get him into a couple games just here and then, just to keep him active, because there is going to be a chunk of time where we are going to need him. Like we're going to lose a defenseman at some point in the season or in the playoffs. It's going to happen. So kind of the issue that Coach Chekhov has had is lack of consistency, and I think that the lack of the AHL team is really hurting him, or at least was. I think he's hopefully going to seize the reins here with Anderson and now Ronta kind of being a little bit shaky, and they're constantly injury-prone history. But I do think the lack of the AHL team and the lack of consistently getting him starts, be it AHL or NHL games, does hurt him to a certain degree.
It does.
Hopefully now that he's getting these consistent NHL starts, he'll progress on those. But yeah, I think that's certainly helping, and I hope that doesn't kind of happen with Tony, where because he's not playing, he's really bad when we do need him to come back. So I'd like to get him a couple games here and there if we can. But that said, Chatfield has played great in his stead, and Orlov has certainly been better with Chatfield as his partner. So that's exciting to see. I'm really happy. I think Orlov is going to come around. I think it's it looks
he's all
like
over the ice at times. He can be all over the ice, so I like to see that. He can be below the goal line at times.
Oh yeah, he's not afraid to hang out down near the crease.
Yeah, I think it's just to get him getting comfortable. Same with Drury, getting comfortable, knowing your role. And I think things will start to gel. And just think, Svech hasn't even scored. He scored 1 goal in 14 games. Yeah. So once he gets going, I think things will look. Provided everyone stays healthy, things are looking up. We're second now in the Metro. We have 2 games in hand over Washington. So if they were to win those 2, they would leapfrog ahead of us. But we're solidly in the top 3 in the Metro. So this road trip is really important.
Just cool down. If the Rangers can just cool down a little bit, we can get right back up there and have a legitimate race for the division again. They stay red hot though, which is tough.
3 straight weeks, Hockey Guy has them in number 1, the Rangers.
Wow. Okay.
The Canes moved up in his rankings from 10th to 5th.
Oh, that's good. I didn't see that. That came out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
jumped up,
good.
big jump.
Okay, that's good. So again, goaltending really briefly, like Freddie's out. We don't know when that's coming. If we can't know soon whether or not we can get his blood clotting issue under control, and if he can, I'm okay with having 3 guys who are potentially going to be injured at any given point. I can't just have one guy who's probably going to be okay, one guy who's kind of injured always, being Ranta, and one guy who's out. Right.
Yeah, I know.
So
we have to find a team
situation
that needs to clear some salary space soon.
What's that?
We need to find a team that needs to clear some salary space soon with a restricted or a free agent of some sort.
Yeah.
Just thinking of a player like Mackenzie Blackwood. He's only saving about 900 clip right now.
Who's he with?
San Jose.
Oh yeah, but that's way good for San Jose.
Right, that's what I'm thinking too. So THG did a goalies video. I don't know if you saw it. You need to check it out. It's pretty good.
I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. And so here's, I guess, the question is, given where we're at, what do you think is the best plan of action for the goaltending situation in Carolina? I know what I think. What do you think?
Going forward from here, I think you just play Kochetkov.
Okay, but do you go out and get someone? Do you stick with what you've got? What do you think?
I think you talk to teams, and if you can get one without giving up anybody, or maybe you give up some prospects, then that's what you do. And you get, I don't know, what is Ronta and Anderson on 1-year deals? Because they both re-signed last year.
Anderson's on a 2, Ronta's on a 1, I believe.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because Ronta, he had glimpses of, he was doing yeoman's work.
Yeah.
Last year, but man, sometimes he'll have a game or a couple, and you're like, what? That Tampa Bay game, that killed us. He was in goal, right? When he gave up 8 goals.
I think he injured himself in that game. I think that's part of the reason why so many came in. I think that's part of the reason that even why Kochetkov is still playing versus Buffalo, even though he gave up a bunch the night before that he started.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think ultimately what the front office would like to do is like to roll with the 3 that we have.
Yeah.
I think they want to play the waiting game. I think they were hopeful that they were going to get some positive news regarding Freddie, or to see if Halak was actually going to work out for them. I don't think they ended up going with Halak because I just don't think they felt he was quite of the caliber that was worth taking a risk on, especially considering that Freddie and Ronta and Kochetkov, Freddie might come back. Ronta and Kochetkov can probably get you over the line. So I think they're in a tough spot. I think given that you do have 3 guys that on any given night can win you a game, I think ultimately you probably just sit tight with those 3 guys, especially if you know that Freddie's going to return eventually this season. And if you know that the Ronta injury that he's kind of has right now is just kind of a nagging, day-to-day thing. I think ultimately that's what you do, because I don't think there are goalies on the market that are really worth
incrementally better.
Marginally better, right? I think the best option in terms of the guy that is most available, but also is going to be the biggest step up, would be a guy like John Gibson. But he's got a bunch of years left on his deal. So it's one of those situations where he's probably going to be the one that's a definite increase at the goaltender position, but he's also the one that's available because he's on a team that's probably going to want him to shed some cap, but also are we going to be wanting to take on that cap for that extended
plus
amount
he's not doing that great. So
again, he's on a Ducks team that doesn't have the best defense. So I think if you do put him with us, I can't imagine that he would be at least as good as the guys we have now. And so if you can get at least consistency out of him, which the 3 guys that we have now aren't really providing you with, I do think you make that move, but I don't think it's as big of no-brainer as some people are maybe thinking.
No,
So I
no,
think
no.
ultimately you stick with the goalies that we have. I think that's probably the best, unless one of those guys does get seriously injured, and we know like if they know for certain that Freddie's not coming back, then I do think you go out and make a move. I think they know that Freddie probably is going to come back, and so that's why they didn't move forward with Halak and haven't done anything with these other goaltenders. I'm sure Don's making calls. I'm sure they're asking around, but I just don't think what those teams are wanting to give up their goaltender is something that we're willing to give up at this time. I've got a couple last minute stats here, and then I think we can kind of wrap up here. Just really briefly wanted to go over the shots because a big criticism of this team is the lack of finish, given that we're consistently out shooting teams. I just kind of took a small sample size of this week. The Canes were 4 for 36 in terms of goals to shots versus the Flyers. The Flyers for 1 for 29. The Canes were 4 for 43 against the Islanders. The Islanders were 5 for 16, so not so good there.
Mm-hmm.
The Canes were 6 for 35 goals to shots against Buffalo, and then Buffalo scored 2 on 22 shots. I just did a brief breakdown of those. So we scored 14 goals on 114 shots. That's a .122 scoring percentage, okay? Meaning that the opposing teams have a .877 save against or goals against save percentage. The opposing teams against us this week were 8 for 67. So we had nearly double the amount of shots as all of the teams we played this week, and they scored 8 goals. So that's an 88% save percentage. So we actually did outperform the teams on average that we played this week from a save percentage and a shooting percentage. Granted, they are almost identical. I just kind of wanted to look into those stats, see if they would reveal much. They don't reveal much other than that the Hurricanes, they are scoring about as much as their opponents. They just need more shots to get those goals, to get those wins. So, hopefully the goaltending gets better. Hopefully the top guys can start being the top guys. Svetch is due for another
starts scoring some goals.
Moment. Nate just hasn't scored. I don't think he's scored this week, but he's looking good, and I'm thinking that line is promising with him and Nason and Drury. So a positive week overall for the Hurricanes. I think there's plenty of room to be optimistic about.
Big road trip.
We'll see how they can react to this road trip. See they look at the end of this month of December. Hopefully they can securely be in a second, maybe even a first position in the division. So with that, any last thoughts before we sign off?
No, I'm just looking forward to. There's a lot of games coming up.
Yep, a lot of good games coming up. Busy month of December here. Yeah. I'm gonna probably do a pretty in-depth stat breakdown, stat analysis. Maybe not next episode, but probably sometime around the Christmas break, really breaking down how close is this team to those other top teams in the league and seeing are we legitimately going to be contenders? Is Vegas, potentially onto something at the start of this season when they gave us the number 1 overall odds to win the cup? So again, thank you for listening to another episode of StormWatch. I'm John Willis. This has been Brad Willis. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.